Geminis, welcome to your weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast. This is for May 23rd through the 29th of 2016. I'm Athen, and this is for Sidereal Astrology. If you are new to the channel, be sure to check out the link because the signs are different. All right, so Gemini, this week we are coming off of your ruler going station direct last Sunday, and this was in your 11th house of your aspirations. So maybe you guys have learned a lot about your aspirations over the past few weeks. And now it's a good week of applying that with your ruler now direct in that 11th. For some of you, it might be group activities or maybe connecting with friends. If that was an area of reflection for you, or maybe anything involving community, progressive things, technological matters, if that was the case. But generally for all of you, it's aspirations and the future possibilities. So with this direct energy, you guys are probably coming out a bit where I think it's still a very spiritual time. You know, you still have the Sun and Venus in your 12th house. You are going to have your ruler go into the 12th house. So for, almost about the next month, we'll say almost, you do have a lot of this this time of going within and really accessing where you can have this acceptance in life, this easygoingness in life, right? And it's that acceptance that leads to that easygoingness and that tranquility. Maybe getting some of that alone time, which I think you can enjoy quite a bit. It's a good place for you to be recharging, gaining that energy at the moment, right? Through both getting the alone time, but also implementing a bit of that acceptance in your life. And yeah, that's the name of the game in terms of those planets. But we are coming off of that full moon, which was right on the cusp between your 6th and your 5th house. So last weekend, perhaps you guys gained some insight about your self-expression, or maybe about your work, or your routine, or your health in some sense, which is that 5th and 6th house. And it was right next to that Mars, which rules your 6th and the 11th. Maybe, maybe there was some insight about those aspirations. So the key with this is that Mars is still retrograde. It's going to be retrograde all the way through June. And so when it does come to the routine, when it comes to those aspirations, things are still very much in flux. All right, so you still want to be adaptive. You want to try new things. See where it takes you. And the shift this week will be Mars going into your 5th house retrograde. Which will be, you probably feel this around Tuesday, Wednesday time. Where although there has been and still is with Saturn retrograde, a lot of this rehashing and redoing with your routine, with your work, reestablishing, rebuilding your foundations with your work and your routine. Mars goes into your 5th. And so this is about learning more about your self-expression. And maybe the directness with self-expression, independence with self-expression, which is what Mars symbolizes. Right? So these are good areas to focus on as we get into June and through June. And perhaps rethinking some of the things that might be your hobbies, your interests, the things that are close to the heart, maybe getting access to your creative side, these types of matters. So that's the very early week, but also Tuesday and Wednesday, we do have Mars opposing up to Venus. And so this is the opposition between the yin and yang polarities with all of us collectively. But this is particularly involving these two areas where, again, I think you can be enjoying a bit of that sensual, connecting to your senses and calming sort of energy of the 12th. This is the balance with that with the daily activities, which is of the 6th, and also the balance of the self-expression. So essentially what this means is it's a good time to have a bit of presence in the everyday sphere. Have a bit of presence with your self-expression, right? And the things that you are passionate about. See where you can have a bit more of that acceptance, which then leads to a greater understanding of both of those areas and a greater fulfillment of both of those areas. Because the 12th house is really the house of fulfillment, the house of happiness, the real kind of happiness, which is accessed in the present moment through acceptance. It's that spiritual transcendence. And this is suggesting that it's a good time to apply that constructively, both in whatever you're creating or expressing, as well as in the daily activities, and vice versa. If you're finding that there's a lot of alone time, you're really going into that extreme of it, bringing in the routines there, bringing in the daily activities, the activities in general, expressing yourself, getting into that creative side. And that can help balance out what is still a very internalized time into the everyday sphere and into your self-expression. And with Saturn and Mars retrograde, it's good to still kind of relearn, rethink, and be adaptive again, both on the routine and what you're creating and your self-expression. And I think those are some things to maybe consider or think about in that regard. So that's the opposition between those two planets. And then on Thursday, very importantly, we do have Jupiter squaring up to Saturn, which has been in orb for about the past week, will be as we go into June. And so this is about the building of our possibilities. And I think a lot of the possibilities that have been shifting for you have been in regards to maybe doing some of that light socializing, maybe getting involved in your community, maybe doing some reading or writing. Some of you might be thinking about writing a book or have been writing a book. You know, these kinds of things, which is about utilizing the mind and learning and being inquisitive, whether it's socially or whether it's through reading or writing. So that's where a lot of possibilities are with Jupiter there, but Saturn is saying, look, with patience, it's good to take these things nice and slow. There's a lot to learn about communication. There's a lot to learn about there's a lot to learn in general with the third house. But Saturn's here making sure that it's done patiently and grounded and for the long term. All right, and it could be supportive. You know, I think a lot of the stuff you're learning could be directly or can be constructively implemented with your routine or work or your craft even. And likewise, all of this stuff that you're building and solidifying with your work and craft can be directly supportive of what you're learning. Right? So this is how to work with the square. This is very constructive. It's about slow and steady growth. And I think with Jupiter, we're seeing the possibilities with learning, with sharing, with communicating, and bringing in that dose of patience into there, can keep it nice and balanced, and bringing in a bit of optimism and a bit of that hope and possibility with the work and routine can help lift things up with Saturn, which is that expansive energy of Jupiter. So that's the square on Tuesday. It'll pretty much be all weekend long, or all week long, but emphasized there on Thursday. And that might be a shifting point there. You know, this is the last and final aspect with this. It's been going on since August of last year. So that's, you know, could be a culminating point for anything you have been involved with since then relating to these matters. But a good week to implement that nonetheless. So this week, the strongest energies, I think, is the fact that your ruler is now direct. It's a good week for implementing these aspirations, or if you've been learning more about community, group-related stuff for some of you, implementing those matters. And with this opposition between Venus and Mars, having that balance with the alone time and the work or the daily stuff, and continuously learning more about your self-expression. Maybe you have a bit more of that acceptance about your creative side, your self-expressive side. All right, bringing in these spiritual things that you could be focused on, or this more tranquil area of life you're more focused on, into both the self-expression and the daily activities. All right, so Gemini, have a fantastic week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next week.